need to do roll call.
Lisa Pierce. Ambrosia Thompson. Ken Elite.
Here.
Joshua Somani.
Thank you.
Emmett Hopkins.
Here.
Zeno Swetnick.
Here.
Mayor Rich.
Present.
And Councilmember Maurer.
Here.
All right. So we do have a quorum. We have, I don't have my list of absence, but there's the Planning Commission and Alex, I believe, is the last part of the team that's not here today. So we do have a quorum in person though.
Thank you. All right. Joshua, do you have a review of action items? Because I don't.
The action items that I have mostly related to things that are on the agenda this time around, which would be Vision Zero and the letter about the Sustainable Transportation Grant.
All right. Thank you. Do we have any comments from the public about things that are not on the agenda? If you are, there's one phone on Zoom, so feel free to raise your hand if you, or just unmute and speak if you have something to say that's not regarding our agenda. Hi, Chris, I see you. We'll be getting to you soon. All right, I don't see any comments from the public. So any statements of conflict of interest from anyone on the group? I'm seeing none, we'll move on to the planning department report. Is that you, or should we wait for John? Okay, we can skip to council report and come back to planning. Council members, we'll skip to your report and come back to planning.
I just have kind of a follow-up on the idea of a permanent compost hub in Sebastopol. I mentioned this at the last meeting, I believe, and have spoken with Joshua about that, and we've spoken to Zinzi about it. And so Zinzi felt that we would have a 2 years to be able to fund this compost giveaway pile. And after that, the city would need to fund it or have some funding sources for it. And I didn't feel like I could commit to that funding. I mean, I just know we can't commit to that right now. So she said because of the cost of setting up that permanent pile, that she would not want to do that with us if we couldn't like kind of guarantee our interest in long-term funding. So I know I'm only one council member. I can't make that decision for the full council. But for now, we've set it aside. And I just wanted to report back to you, although there is a possibility that if people really wanted a permanent compost pile, which I'm not sure there's, consensus on that it's possible we could roll that in with garbage service costs. And so it would be, I don't know, it would be very small incremental cost to each person to host that. But I don't know if that would be worth pursuing. So I'm going to let it go for now. And but feel free to chat with me if you want and follow up on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything from you, Mayor Rich?
No, I have nothing to add. Thank you.
All right, we skipped to council. So now back to planning.
Okay. So first, later this evening, we will have the canopy projects, final EIR and entitlement review. For context, that is the 80-unit townhome development that's going in or proposed to go in behind the O'Reilly Media Center at the north end of town. The Planning Commission would be making a recommendation to City Council. So that would be tonight. And then a projected council meeting on April 2nd. And that would be for the final certification and then final entitlement review. There would also be, as part of this project, there's a design review for the building and as well as the tree removals that are on site. And those would be looking to go to the design review board later in April. We are also conducting interviews for the Sustainable Transportation Grant tomorrow afternoon with the two proposals that we selected. That is the look at the downtown Main Street core and its options. The other development projects, Woodmark is still moving forward with their vertical construction, and they're hoping to have that phase 1 completion by the end of this year. So that's about 48 units. And then the additional 40 units, or I believe it's 40 units, will be phase 2, which is, that timeline is undefined right now. The Hotel Sebastopol, I don't have any recent updates on that other than still waiting for their archaeology report sign-offs from the state. The active transportation program that SCTA is doing with a couple of consultants and working with the city, that milestone 2 update is going to be coming to the Planning Commission at their April 9th meeting. And they'll be doing some additional public outreach as part of that to provide the information on the proposed plans that they're suggesting for the city. And the planning department will also be looking at doing an additional public outreach event, possibly in the end of April or May. And that would be more of a kind of open house style event to help or have the public provide input on that project rather than a couple-minute public comment period during planning commission meetings, which is, for that project, it's very difficult to get some good points across in that short period of time. So I think that's it. Oh, and I just want to update the group at the next council meeting, which is next Tuesday. They will be having a agenda item looking at possibilities of removal of some of the committees and groups in the city. The Climate Action Committee as well as the Public Arts Committee are 2 of those up for discussion, as well as the possible combination of Design Review and Planning Commission into one cohesive board. So that agenda item with the report with all of that information will be coming out by the end of this week. So if you have any questions, I can attempt to answer.
So just to reflect back, what I'm hearing is that when the city manager or city staff presents to council, presumably on budgetary grounds, consolidation of groups or committees, commissions, etc., for the city, one of the possible recommendations would be dissolving the Climate Action Committee.
So can I interject here? Because I hear representations regarding the city council's actions, and I just gotta speak on behalf of the city council. We have a process that's going on. The city council has not heard any specific proposals from our city manager. We are not absolutely clear on what will be presented on March 19. I had a discussion just this morning with our city manager about the breadth of his presentation on March 19. That may or may not include some proposals regarding changes to city commissions, committees. To the extent that those proposals are presented, they will be considered by the full city council. So I just want to make that absolutely clear. We are waiting for the city manager's proposals on a range of topics, all of which have to do with trying to balance what is a really challenging fiscal situation. So that's one that we expect at some point to hear, but it has not been presented to us. The agenda has not been set. Anyone who's curious wants to know exactly what that agenda will look like, it will be posted by no later than Friday of this week. And our city manager is in fact doing a deep dive. And yes, there will be painful changes that he will be proposing at one point or another, but we don't expect that all of those will be on March 19, and we do not, at this point, know exactly what those proposals are going to be. So just want to kind of, make sure that everyone is aware of our process.
Thank you. I did not mean to unnecessarily rile up the group. But I did want to just point out that perhaps if we're interested, we may want to check that agenda that's coming out this Friday, and people may or may not want to attend the March 19th meeting to hear what is proposed. And if there is any proposal regarding this body, we will assure you that we will agendize it for our April meeting for discussion.
And Kenna, just to emphasize that, yes, the March 19 meeting will definitely include a long-range a presentation by a consultant who is doing a long-range projection that takes into consideration our current fiscal situation, deep dive into the status of that situation, and projects what we have going forward into the future. So if you live in Sebastopol, if you care about Sebastopol, sign on March 19. And actually, if you wouldn't mind, Ken, I think we might as well ask that John Jay send out specifically the link to that meeting. I think it would be a very good idea for everyone here to attend that meeting. So thank you. Thank you, Kenna, for making the point.
Yeah, I can send out the link to the meeting. I don't know when the agenda will be posted though, so I don't want everybody to wait for me to send them the agenda if it does come out after work hours. So, but we can definitely send the link to the meeting, which is already available.
That would be great. Thank you so much. Yes.
Yeah, so this is kind of related, although probably less on our mind right now. But the two city council people on this committee, one represents Zero Waste. The other is the representative of the city council on the Sonoma County Transportation Authority Board. You look on the website, that's on the website. So I'm just,
No,
let me
I'm not.
finish.
Okay.
So I understand it's hard to coordinate it all, right? But I want to make sure that the communication between the board member on the board of directors of the Transportation Authority has good communication with this group, because a lot of things happen there that need to be communicated. And so I think Solomon is the representative.
Zaino, I'm going to actually cut this conversation off for now.
So my request is that we take this into mind and we make sure that there's good communication between what happens at the board of directors of this countywide committee.
Yeah, I will say that at the council meeting on Tuesday, last council meeting, Nisa Hinton, who is the representative board member for RCPA, SCTA, expressed willingness to communicate with this committee if we're directly in contact with her, but I doubt she would be coming here to report out. This committee meets during her work hours.
Right.
I think we're going to keep going. We have 2 action items today. So unless you have something very important, very quick, go ahead.
I'll just won't comment on all of the stuff we just heard. This is a question to staff. We had the CAC pass a letter that was going to be sent on, and the council was going to look at that and approve and send it along to the governor and various agencies for the 2025 code update. Just checking on the status of that. I met with council member Maurer, and we came up the language. It was sent on, and just confirming.
Yes, I did receive that, and I've sent it off to the city clerk to get that on the next agenda setting meeting, which would be March 20th, next Wednesday, I think is when that is. So that'll be up there.
Thank you.
So just to orient our new members of the public who are present, we're a little bit less formal than some of the boards and commissions. So if you want to speak at any time during the meeting, just let us know. And unless I feel like we're super behind, we'll say, go ahead. And you have to talk from the podium. All right. So planning anything else before we move on? Okay. Thank you so much. We're always grateful for your presence, given that you have so much on your plate. Moving on to the regular agenda for working group reports for any activities not on the agenda today. We love to hear the reports from working groups, and we do have 2 action items, so I'm hoping we could keep those reports brief.
So I don't really know where I'm going with this, but the last the planning commission meeting, I believe it was February 25th, was really attacked by some really nasty Zoom bombers. I don't know if anybody watched the recording, but it was really disturbing. John knows about it. Susie, you were there. Yeah. So I was just kind of wondering, for the city to consider for all meetings, the possibility about going back to, if you want to say something, you can write a letter or come to the meeting. But this is such an abusive thing that's happening to these people who are volunteering, and it was really upsetting to see it.
I would just respond that that's not within the scope of this committee, so we
No.
need to bring that to council meetings.
Right. I just wanted to mention that it happened.
And we're grateful that when we have had Zoom bombers here, planning staff have responded so quickly and stopped the attack before we realized it was happening sometimes.
Can I
any-
comment on that?
I think I'd like
Just
to
briefly.
very quickly.
The council unfortunately addressed this at the last, I don't know how many council meetings ago, a few council meetings ago, and we, the staff encouraged us to continue with the Zoom. So we voted on it and approved that to continue with Zoom for all the boards and meetings.
Continuing on. Yeah, Alex, go ahead.
I have a working group report. We are having a workshop on April 4th. I sent you the flyer. If you would be so kind as to share it via email.
I
Or-
can't get into the Zoom.
Or I could send it to John or whoever is in charge.
I'll try again. Hold on.
Or I can email it.
yeah, we
can I
can-
email it to everybody?
I think if we present it here, he could email it to
Yeah.
everyone.
Can you email it to Susie?
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, but can you just tell us, because it's very exciting,
Sorry.
there's 2 public education meetings.
Yeah, so the first one I'll speak on, it's titled Your Energy Efficient and Resilient Home Free Workshop. It is hosted by Bayren and apparently sponsored by Sonoma Clean Power, which I was unaware of. It's being put on by two folks from the county, and we are going to be having it in the green room of the Sebastopol Community Cultural Center on Thursday, April 4th from 6 to 7:30. And on the link, there's a way to register via email, and I will send it now. I don't have anything else to report on the education piece. I know there's another workshop on the 11th, but I don't have all the details, so maybe Steve would be so kind as to share with us, because Phil's not here today.
First off, too bad Phil's not here, because a few months back, we had the meeting in the green room, and we were just kind of wondering, do we have the juice to keep going? And you know what? Phil brought some juice, and I really appreciate him stepping up and diving right into it with this first event. And it's geared towards contractors, which we've identified is the key ingredient to push electrification. And it's going to be both a deep dive into the incentives, where they can get resources to learn more, and talking about the barriers and the opportunities that are out there. And Sonoma Clean Power is also going to be at that event. It's at the Livery on on April 11th at 6 o'clock. And once again, it's really targeted to contractors and professionals in the field. And if you have any more questions, Phil is wealth of knowledge on it. Thank you.
Can you give us the time?
It's at 6 o'clock, but we're hoping to, it's a small space at the livery. Oh, well, there we go. I guess Phil may be online.
Phil sent that to us this afternoon. So
Oh.
I wasn't sure if that was the one you were talking about, Alex.
No, but there's another one.
There's another one.
yeah.
Okay.
And so this is an example of our committee in this fight, fighting above our weight class in small town Sebastopol. And if it wasn't for the volunteers stepping up, Phil, he talked with the group and how much should we get the city involved? Well, we decided it's run by a member of the committee, but it's also in conjunction with these other private entities that are offering their space. So in this case, the city's not involved really at all. But it's an example of how we can make progress on key things in the framework of working with the city when it's appropriate.
Yay. Thank you, guys. It's so great to see these things coming to fruition. Any other working groups have anything?
Can I just make
Yeah.
one more comment? Thank you, Steve, for sharing that. And luckily, our dates worked out, so we weren't having 2 events in 1 week because that would have been a lot. This event was supposed to be at the library. For some reason, Bayren wasn't able to schedule it. So I'm just glad we got everybody together, and hope to see you all there for both of them.
All right. And the rumor is that the county staff who really, really know how to connect people to incentives are going to be at the homeowners one.
Yes, and I will tell you their names shortly.
Perfect.
Kenna, can I just
Yeah.
make a request of John? These 2 events seem like events that would be worthwhile, including in our city e-news. I know that we have limited bandwidth there because of budgetary issues, but I'm hoping that you could forward both of those flyers to Mary Gurley and CC to Holly Hansen in the hopes that we could get the word out. Thank you. Got it. So yeah, the modification is not the contractor one at the livery. Okay.
And the Facebook page for the city, that would be wonderful too. And we can all share it too.
Also, Christine and Dory out of the city, or sorry, the county, will be presenting on the 4th.
All right. Thank you again. Any other working groups that have something to present that's not on the agenda? All right. So hooray. We will move on to this very exciting Vision Zero resolution that has been proposed. And I believe Chris, who is here on Zoom, is going to be presenting to us. But Zeno or Emmett, did you want to introduce the topic?
Yeah, I can really just briefly introduce kind of the topic. So we looked at this a few months back, but part of our work plan, I believe, is to put forward a Vision Zero resolution. And I think Chris is probably going to share a little bit more about background on Vision Zero, but real briefly, Vision Zero is kind of this strategy / philosophy / campaign that's global that says that we can strive to have 0 traffic fatalities. So it's, of course, it's connected with climate because so many of our emissions are transportation based, and a huge strategy, given that we don't have the time to get everyone into EVs on the time frame that we need to, and because of a lot of other equity factors that make sense to move away from our car culture. It's hugely important that we make people feel safe when they're out biking and walking on the streets so that they can kind of make that transition. So that's kind of how it fits into our goals. And we've been working on this resolution to for the city to consider. And I think Chris is going to share a little more about kind of what's been done on the county level already with this and a little more background. So thanks for joining, Chris. I'll hand it off to you.
Great, and good afternoon, everyone. So happy to be here, and thanks for the invitation to come out and talk about Vision Zero. So just a quick check. The audio quality on this end isn't great, but I want to make sure everyone can hear me. All right. All right, let me go ahead and get these slides up as well. Let's see. There we go. So happy to be here today to talk a little bit about Vision Zero in general and Vision Zero in Sonoma County, and answer the question, why is it important, or what are the benefits to adopting Vision Zero, the action plan, and the principles that are included in the plan. So moving on to why Vision Zero. So this is a movement in the traffic safety arena. It's really focused on prioritizing people, not cars, and recognizing that every fatality is an actual person. And also recognizing that crashes are generally not accidents and that human error leads to traffic fatalities and injuries. So there's generally a fault at stake there. So the focus really is on saving lives, and human life and health should be the highest priority within all aspects of transportation systems. And there's a recognition that any traffic death is one too many and that they are preventable. So there's a real focus on safe streets, and that human error is inevitable, that crashes and mistakes will happen, but to include capital improvements, policies, and programs that'll help minimize those to reduce traffic deaths and serious injuries. And there's also a significant focus on equity as well, and recognizing that all people have the right to travel safely through our community. And we really need to work together to eliminate disparities in transportation safety based on where someone lives, income, race, ability, age, language spoken, and vehicle access. So you can see here a map that was developed as part of the Vision Zero action plan that shows some of the details about some of these crashes that have occurred across the county, and recognizing that these are actual people that are being hurt or being killed on our roadways. So looking at some of the high-level crash factors in Sonoma County. So this information is from 2016 to 2020, but the trends are still consistent, looking at the past couple years of data. So the top crash factors in Sonoma County, which vary based on severity of injury, include unsafe speeds and speeding, unsafe turns, impaired driving, and right-of-way issues, including things like running red lights, unsafe U-turns, and running stop signs. So this and other information helps us identify programs, projects, and capital improvements that can address these different crash factors and help identify and address root causes instead of the symptoms of these crash factors. So looking specifically at Sonoma County, we've been working on this for a number of years. The Sonoma County Transportation Authority and the Department of Health Services have partnered on this since about 2016. When we put together a grant application for a Caltrans Sustainable Communities grant to develop an action plan for Sonoma County focused on traffic safety, and developing a data dashboard that can be used to summarize crash and safety information in the county. So we were able to actually submit a grant application and were awarded funds for doing that. So we kicked off the work on the Vision Zero action plan in 2019, and that was adopted in 2022. So as part of that, we formed and facilitated the Vision Zero Advisory Committee, which still meets today to talk about traffic safety and actually implementing the action plan. So this is a multidisciplinary group made up of local staff, which includes engineering, public works, planning, active transportation, public safety staff, as well as public representatives, community-based organizations, and also health services and health provider representatives as well. So a pretty broad group of folks that are well equipped to provide different perspectives on traffic safety and making progress in this area in Sonoma County. So along with the Vision Zero Advisory Committee, we worked with consultants and representatives of that group to develop the Vision Zero data dashboard. So that incorporates crash data that's typically collected by public safety officers across the county and across the state, which are aggregated into a state crash database. So we're able to get yearly reports from this data to include in our data dashboard, which is helpful and useful for justifying funding for different projects and also getting a better picture for where very dangerous locations are in the county. So one of the main efforts as part of the planning process was to set a Vision Zero goal for the county. And so the advisory committee worked together to set a goal of eliminating serious injuries and fatality on countywide roadways by 2030. So a lot of work is still ongoing in this arena. So the Vision Zero Advisory Committee meets quarterly and talks about progress in meeting the plan goals and implementing the recommendations in that plan. One of the most recent achievements that we've had in this area is applying for a federal Safe Streets and Roads for All grant and getting awarded over $1 million in planning funds to help work on those recommendations and policies included in the Vision Zero action plan. So here's a high-level look at the data dashboard that was developed as part of this process. So this is actually a tool that you can use to look at the geographic distribution of crashes. There's a mapping component and also a demographic and data analysis component as well. So you're able to sort and get more information about crashes and get information on location, severity of the crash, date, crash factors, mode of travel, and a number of other factors as well. So it's interactive, and we update this once a year for our local partners and the public to use to get more information on where crashes are happening and what problem areas are. So as part of the plan, one of the major efforts was to gather information, but also set some goals. And so these are the high-level areas that we focused on as part of the plan. So the first goal area is creating safer speeds. So a lot of the recommendations in the plan are focused on speed limit reduction. So reducing speeds to safer levels. The faster a vehicle is traveling, the higher the chance of a fatality or serious injury. So getting the speeds down definitely makes our transportation and roadway system safer. The next goal area is eliminating impaired driving. So you saw in the list of crash factors, it's the #1 cause of fatalities and serious injuries in Sonoma County. So there are a number of recommendations in the plan focused on addressing that, including different enforcement measures and marketing and behavioral programs to address that issue. Another goal area is to create a culture of safety. So a number of recommendations here focus on safe routes to school. So making it safer for kids to walk, bike, and take non-motorized modes of travel to schools. Also marketing and reducing distracted driving. That's a significant issue as well, and one that it's often not reported and it's difficult to track in the data we receive from the state and through our public safety partners. Our next goal area is to build safe streets for all. So this is very capital project focused. So and includes recommendations for different types of quick build safety projects to engage in safety planning, to maintain our roadways. Poorly maintained roadways and bike lanes and bike paths are less safe. Lighting is also a major issue in certain parts of our county as well. We include recommendations for funding for safety projects. There's never enough money to go around to implement all of the recommendations we would like to. And also improving our bicycle pedestrian network is a major priority as well. The next goal area is to make vehicles safer and to reduce vehicle use altogether. So there are recommendations to reduce vehicle miles traveled and to improve alternatives to automobile use in the plan. And then the final recommendation focuses on improving data for effective decision-making. So it's difficult to make concrete recommendations without knowing where the trouble corridors and intersections are in our county. So having better information will help us do that. So there are recommendations to improve crash reporting. So helping provide better tools for our public safety officers to collect better information is a priority. We'd like to develop other data sources, including near miss information and trauma center data, and be able to report on that to help evaluate where changes need to be made, and also to improve our tools and reporting. So it's nice having information on where current problems are, but we'd like to provide a year-over-year look at how we're making progress in each of these areas. So another piece of the planning effort was to develop a high injury network. This was a data-based approach to look at and identify high injury corridors and intersections that had a high preponderance of crashes and fatalities. So this is available for our local planners and partners to help with their planning and to go after funding for improvements. So I mentioned before that a really important part of developing a plan is, to have some goals in place, but it's also important to track progress over time. So you can see an example of a progress report that we developed as part of the planning effort that jurisdictions can use to report on kind of high level progress in different areas, like providing new protected bicycle lanes to help reduce conflicts with automobiles, to provide crossing improvements, to implement safety and educational programs, things like that. So we've provided a number of resources that local jurisdictions can use to report on what's being done to address traffic safety in their jurisdictions. So we're also going to be working with our data dashboard and other tools to develop some automated resources that'll make this easier, something we can push out to the data dashboard. And part of that Safe Streets and Roads for All grant that we received has provided some resources that we can use to do some of that. So we're looking forward to making improvements in this area and building on what was developed as part of the plan, and making it easier to look at how we're doing and what we're able to achieve year after year. So a number of jurisdictions in the county have adopted the Vision Zero plan. You can see a list here. It's 9 different organizations or jurisdictions have adopted the plan. At this point, the city of Sebastopol and Sonoma are the 2 jurisdictions that have not yet adopted the plan. And just looking at the benefits of adopting the action plan, I think one of it is, really symbolic and just demonstrates a commitment to traffic safety. And thank you for sharing the resolution that you have put together and will be recommending to or considering recommending to your city council. I think that really does show a commitment to traffic safety. And so that is a big part of adopting it. And it also shows support for the Vision Zero goals and objectives. And, all of those are voluntary, but adopting the plan and including a resolution does show a commitment to working in those areas and trying to achieve some of those goals and making progress in those areas. Adopting the plan provides a framework for tracking progress. So we have identified some metrics that can be used to track progress in looking at traffic safety over time, and we'll continue to do that. So the plan provides a framework for doing that. And then finally, adopting the plan opens some doors for potential grant funding and other funding that could be used to implement the projects. So that Safe Streets and Roads for All grant is one program that really builds off these action plans. So with this adopted, it opens that door. And there are a number of other grant funding opportunities available that either require an adopted action plan or something similar, or having an adopted plan will really make those grant applications more competitive. So with that, that's a high-level overview of Vision Zero action planning here in Sonoma County. We're committed to continuing to move this forward. We have some resources through grant funding to do that here in Sonoma County. And again, really excited that Sebastopol is considering adopting the plan, and SETA and SETA staff are committed to supporting you as you do that. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn things back over to the committee and chair.
Thank you so much, Chris. That was a very informative presentation. Does anyone have questions for Chris? Yeah, go ahead, Emmett.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Chris. I have a question that just might help inform our discussion here. You mentioned all the cities that have adopted the action plan, and like as it's written now, our resolution does not specifically say that we adopt, the Sonoma County Vision Zero action plan. It's sort of adopting the Vision Zero principles and strategies. And I'm wondering if we should think about changing that, if all those cities have in fact used that language to say they adopted the action plan, or they've just adopted the principles, and if you could speak on that.
Yeah, thank you for that question. And I'm just going to just respond back what I heard, so I make sure I answer that correctly. So the question is, right now, the resolution doesn't adopt the plan specifically, just the principles of Vision Zero. And, the question is whether, what the benefit of adding the plan adoption to that resolution would be. Okay, great. So I believe Sebastopol has a local road safety plan. So for a lot of these grant programs, that could be substituted for an adopted action plan. But adopting the plan, I think some of the biggest benefits would be just making grant applications stronger by having an action plan and a local road safety plan adopted. People scoring grant applications a lot of times will look for those as they're checking the different boxes. So, that's where I would see the benefit to adopting that. But in the current resolution, I saw the principles lined out there as well. So that's what I would see as the benefit.
I have a question whether there's any chance that this action plan, I don't know if anyone can answer. Is there any chance that adopting this action plan would have any conflicts with existing city planning documents?
That's an open question. I certainly don't know. Do you, John?
I have no idea. Yeah, we would have to go look through the adopted plans that are similar and see where if there's any conflicts with them.
And I think we're hearing from Chris that it may be, in fact, that our local road safety plan incorporates the principles of the Vision Zero plan. I don't know. I did have a question when there's an opportunity.
Go ahead.
So my question is, Chris, thank you for the presentation, by the way, first of all. You mentioned that there were many other jurisdictions that have adopted the Vision Zero plan. Are there other jurisdictions that have adopted resolutions of the kind that we're looking at today?
So as part of the adoption, when we were developing the action plan, we developed a few different materials that could be used to adopt the plan, including a model resolution. So in pretty much every case, that resolution was used to actually adopt the action plan. So I'm not aware of any of the adoptions that didn't go that route. So I think that's the primary vehicle to actually adopt it.
So then my next question is, how does our resolution differ from the model resolution that has been made available by SCTA RCPA?
So I'm going to repeat the question so I make sure I understand it correctly. So, I think the question is how to sync up or make sure that the Sebastopol resolution includes
No,
the
my
information?
question
No.
is, I'm sorry, my question is, so are you having trouble hearing us? It sounds like it.
Yeah, the
Okay.
audio quality is a
Okay,
little
so
muddy.
I will try to be a little clearer.
Okay, thank
enunciate.
you.
And actually, this might be a question to Emmett, someone here on Climate Action Committee, but my question is whether our proposed resolution tracks the model resolution that you have made available to other jurisdictions.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So I'll repeat back again. The question is whether or not the proposed Sebastopol resolution is in line or consistent with the model resolution produced by the Vision Zero action plan planning effort. And I did review the resolution that you have put together, and the information is it's consistent. So yeah. We can provide that model resolution if there's a desire to, do a little more merging there. But after my first pass at looking at that, I didn't see anything that jumped out as being inconsistent with what we put together as part of our planning effort at the countywide level.
Thank you. I bet you the working group that's been working on this will have some input on all of that. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can just say that we started with the model resolution in the action plan and then tried to adapt it to Sebastopol. So it's changed, but the foundation was the same.
I think it would be helpful for when this comes to council is to have, at least a couple of the examples, one, the county of Sonoma for sure, and then a couple of the other cities and the resolution wording, whatever it was they passed. If you could include that in a packet, I think that would be helpful for council in terms of understanding.
I have a question for the working group. I think, was there a reason why you guys didn't recommend that the city adopt the plan? If what I'm hearing from Chris is that has potential to strengthen grant applications, so there is a reason to include it, but was there a reason that you decided not to include it?
Yeah, no, there wasn't any specific reason. I was just looking back at the model resolution, and it references the plan. It doesn't really formally adopt the plan. So I'd like to see what the other cities have put forward. Be it further resolved that the city will put equity at its forefront when setting goals and implementing recommendations from the Sonoma County Vision Zero action plan. There are a few statements like that, but it doesn't say, be it resolved that the city formally adopts Sonoma County Vision Zero action plan. So I'm not sure if that's something that other cities actually have done or not, but I think it would be fine to do if we want to or not.
So are we at this point questions just to Chris, or are we also questions to the working group?
No, I think it's fine for us to just discuss as a group. So
As a group.
but Chris, if you would like to go, can we check and see, are there any further questions for Chris so that he can log off? All right, Chris, thank you so much. I'm assuming there will be some email follow-up.
I'm sorry, Kenna. I do have one more question, if I could, of Chris. When I look at this resolution that we're considering today, there are a lot of what I would describe as mandatory statements. The city will do X, the city will do Y. When you, and I've seen a lot of resolutions in my time on council, and many of them are much more aspirational in terms of their wording. The city will consider, will strive to. When you look at resolutions that you've considered or reviewed in other jurisdictions, or even your model resolution, can you give us any input? Are they all more aspirational? Are they all more mandatory? What's your experience with the wording?
Yeah, so it's been variable, right? So language has been softened in some cases, or it's more prescriptive in certain cases as well. So it's certainly up to each individual body, which way they'd like to go.
Okay, thank
So,
you.
and I'd be happy to provide some examples or get staff or members of the committee in contact with local jurisdictional staff that have kind of guided this through their committees as well, if that would be helpful.
Thank you. Thank you for the answer and the offer of assistance.
I have a general question about resolutions. If we're using softer language, like we will strive or whatever the softer language is that just because we're trying to do better, or like that doesn't really feel like it gives the resolution backbone? I'm just curious. And I know you guys have
hold
more.
on. Is this a question for Chris?
No.
Okay, hold on one sec. Does anybody have a question for Chris before we let him go? Yeah, we have Phil. Go ahead. You're gonna have to come up to the mic. And you have to speak into it very clearly. Sorry, Alex. I'm coming back to you.
I'm just wondering how the language of anything we adopt affects our probability of getting grants or other support. For Chris.
I don't think that really comes into play. So you're not generally attaching your resolution to a grant application. You're basically just providing a narrative, and indicating that you've adopted a plan or Vision Zero principles or have a local road safety plan. So from that standpoint, I don't think the language would have really any bearing. It's more of kind of to guide the efforts of the individual jurisdiction. So how the teeth you'd like to include, I guess, in the resolution.
And a follow-up regarding grants. How do you see Vision Zero translating to grants for other cities in Sonoma County?
Could you repeat that again, sir? Sorry.
I'm wondering how Vision Zero adoption has translated into winning grants either through Vision Zero or otherwise for transportation projects in Sonoma County.
Great. Yeah, thank you for that. So one of the most recent cases is we put together a multi-jurisdictional grant for Sonoma County. I mentioned the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant program. So as part of that, we included $25 million of capital improvement and planning projects. So as part of that, our capital improvement projects weren't funded. That category in the federal grant program has been very competitive, particularly in California. So we received a partial award to look at speed limit reduction, safe routes to school planning and support, improving our reporting and data dashboards, and doing some corridor studies and specific speed limit review in the cities of Petaluma and Healdsburg. So that's the most recent example, but including information on adoption of both Vision Zero Action Plan and local road safety plans have been used to justify and strengthen grant applications in other areas as well, such as the Active Transportation Program, which is a state level grant program that's focused on funding bicycle and pedestrian facilities as well. So it's definitely something that can add some weight to these different applications. And the Safe Streets and Roads for All program has three future cycles that we're working on another countywide application focused on quick build and demonstration style projects this year. And there might be other opportunities in the next few years as well to try and get some projects implemented or built or do additional planning.
I had another question for Chris, and I'm not sure if this would be to Emmett or to Chris. When I look at this draft resolution, there are a lot of factual statements. And as I was listening to a lot of whereas, and that's very specific percentages, numbers, my question, as I listened to what you were speaking about, what I heard you say is that there was a lot of data that had been collected, and I think you said 2016 to 2020. So my question regarding this resolution and the whereas statements is I want to make sure that they are absolutely accurate And I'd like to be able to reference when this data, what time frame this data reflects. I don't know if you've been able to review this or if it came from your documents, Chris, but that's an important question. Are these facts correct? And what time frame do they reflect, if you know?
Yeah, I can speak to the model resolution. So those numbers in there were pulled from the action plan. So they were current as of 2020 and developed using the Vision Zero data dashboard. So we do have 2 newer years of data. We do have 2021 and 2022 data available. And there are options and tools available using the data dashboard to look at information specifically for Sebastopol or other jurisdictions as well. So that's certainly something that could be checked and reviewed. And I'd be happy to help with that if there's a need or desire.
Okay, but I understood you to say in general, would it be accurate to say in general that the data was current as of 2020, but that recent data, we could come up with the wording, I'm sure I could, but that recent data has not substantially changed the information?
Right. Yeah. There have been additional collisions and crashes, but the trends are still holding.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for Chris? Okay, Chris, I'm positive there will be further email follow-up, but thank you again for your presentation.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I apologize for the audio issues on my end. So please reach out if you have any other questions or need any support.
We could hear you fine, and I think the audio issues are probably on our end.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
I have a question for Emmett and Zaino, or Emmett, if you're the spearhead here. Given the conversation that has happened so far, do you want to propose any changes to the resolution? Are you wanting this to move forward as an action item today? What is your intention for this meeting to address this proposal?
I think that we can move ahead. I think that it doesn't sound like it's too critical, the very precise language and the way that we express our commitment to Vision Zero. And so I think that we can move ahead. If it's helpful, I could really briefly share kind of the process that went into making this and walk through the different sections like in a quick way, or we can just move into discussion.
Let's just ask the group, would that be helpful to the group? Or have we all had plenty of time to read?
I've reviewed it carefully. I'm good just moving forward.
Okay.
Yeah. I think we
Yeah,
can
and I
move
guess,
forward.
I can say maybe I can say just really briefly, because for the others who haven't reviewed it as much, it might help to know that we had a few rounds of review and feedback from planning staff and our council members, which were really helpful and gave us some great points about how to kind of restructure it and fine tune it. So we did do those rounds. So just for context for everyone to know. And I had responses to a couple of the questions, if I could, like for the question on the data, the data that's cited in the resolution very clearly like states what years it's from. So between 2014 and 2020, there were 2 reported pedestrian fatalities, 31 reported, so on and so forth. And there's another stat that's from 2011 to 2020. So I think that we're solid there. And there's a supporting letter that has the sources for all of those facts cited for anyone who wants to see that, and that can go to the council. And then on the question of the sort of strong statements dictating like action, or I don't remember how it was phrased. I think some of the feedback that we got was to try to make sure that there weren't too many of those statements given the city's financial state. And so we did do quite a bit to kind of reduce anything that would strongly commit the city to certain actions. So I think that you'll find that a lot of what's in there talks about the city will prioritize such and such as funding and resources allow, and statements like that. So I hope that that kind of addresses those concerns.
I have a
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a comment, not a question. So would you like me to hold that comment? Okay, so I wanted to thank Emmett and the group for walking this forward. This was a big effort, and I wanted to thank you for incorporating all of our comments. And I'm noticing in the title of the resolution, it says that the city will commit to, it said, and commit to city level actions to reduce traffic fatalities to zero by the year 2030, but nowhere in the resolution, the body of the resolution, does it say anything about reducing fatalities to zero by 2030. So I would recommend either taking that out of the title or adding it as part of the, an action item at the bottom of it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's something that came directly out of the model resolution as it is there in sort of the title. And I admit that I have not even looked at it since initially starting with that. And so I think that makes sense to either incorporate it or eliminate it. Open to suggestions.
And can I add some comments when there's an opportunity?
Go ahead.
So, so I definitely see the title. You'll need to, I hadn't really read it either, but yeah, it does say adopting the zero action plan. So some sort of rewording of that would be great. My focus really, and I did reach out to you, Emmett, and was hoping to talk to you about this beforehand, but my focus is really on the prescriptive language in this resolution. And I have to just be blunt. I know that that this group has a specific commitment to these goals, but this prescriptive language is not, it doesn't work for me as a city council member, and it is not going to work, I don't think. We never know until our city council is discussing these topics, but it does create a barrier. It makes it harder to accept this resolution by this city council in our budgetary world that we live in right now. And I do have some proposals of changes that I think could be considered that would really keep the aspirational piece to it, but reduce the prescriptive sort of tone. I don't know if it's going to be acceptable to this group, and this is this group's resolution, but I'll run through them really quickly, and maybe they could at least be considered. Ken, is it okay for me to run through them?
Please.
Okay. So I'm looking at the page that starts with "be it further resolved," and I've really gone down and highlighted the place where it says "will," and so that's what I'm focusing on. The second paragraph says, "Be it further resolved that the city of Sebastopol will collaborate." I would suggest that we say "will strive to collaborate." The next paragraph is, "Be it further resolved that the city of Sebastopol will prioritize." Again, I'd suggest that we consider making it "will strive to collaborate." The next one is, "Be it further resolved that the city of Sebastopol will," I think we're at prioritize again. And again, I would say, let's put in "will strive to prioritize." So just introducing that phrase gets the message across, but doesn't create a 100% commitment for the city of Sebastopol. The other change, I think that got removed. So then if we look at the final one, city of Sebastopol, that's the one where there's 4 items below it. It's the final paragraph. Currently reads, "Be it further resolved that the city of Sebastopol will prioritize Vision Zero principles." I'd suggest we look at city of Sebastopol will strive to identify or to prioritize Vision Zero principles. So I think just introducing the "will strive to" would keep the aspirational piece, but soften it without eliminating the message from this group. And I'll point out that actually, I think the document itself, says in the second paragraph at the top, be it further resolved that the city of Sebastopol will collaborate with, is what the current version says. And you'll notice 3 lines down, it uses the language as these groups strive to identify. So this group is trying to strive to do this very meaningful effort here. And I'd suggest that we expect the city of Sebastopol and the city council to strive to meet those goals also. That's my general comment. And then the one other change I had was at the very beginning, the very first, be it further resolved on that page. And it says Sebastopol's roadway, the most vulnerable users of city of Sebastopol's roadway system by prioritizing. And again, I don't think that, my suggestion is, let's not make the city of Sebastopol prioritize infrastructure that increases safety, because there are going to be a lot of other factors coming up that need to be considered. So perhaps we could say, by not prioritizing infrastructure, but by giving serious consideration to the benefits of infrastructure, or some similar language. So I'm just trying to focus on, this is a goal, it's aspirational, but we can't be prescriptive. And this is just language that I was just trying to put together spontaneously. It's not perfect, but that would be my general suggestion. And then attach the model resolutions that were mentioned by Chris and that were reiterated by Councilmember Maurer. So again, softens it. Maybe it's not going to be acceptable to the group, but just an idea here. Thanks.
Does anyone else, did you want to respond to that, or?
No, I think I would be fine with those changes myself. So would be happy to hear other people's thoughts. And the only one I think you said for the last be it resolved section would strive to identify or prioritize. Wasn't sure I captured that one quite right.
I'm sorry, Emma, was it my last comment?
No, it was just the
last paragraph.
the last section. Yeah,
I
be it further
understand.
resolved, the city of
Yeah.
Sebastopol will identify or prioritize Vision Zero principles.
It's
Was that what you
it's
were?
yeah, thanks. It's the final paragraph. And my recommendation was, instead of saying be it further resolved that the city of Sebastopol will prioritize Vision Zero principles, my suggestion is that we introduce the similar language, that the city of Sebastopol will strive to, and I think, I had to modify it because of the phrasing. So I said, city of Sebastopol will strive to identify sustainable funding sources within, but I'm not quite sure. Oh, yeah, so that would be my suggestion, that we instead modify it to read, be it further resolved that the city of Sebastopol will strive to identify sustainable funding sources, funding and resources. The problem I'm having here is that I'm comparing a version, Emmett, that I was working with that is different from the version that we are now being presented with. So my edits aren't lining up.
Okay.
I suppose we
think
could
get the, yeah.
we could just say we'll strive to prioritize. Maybe that kind of does it.
Yeah, we'll strive to prioritize Vision Zero principles as funding and resources allow for
Yeah.
future projects. Okay.
Yeah, that works for me.
Anyone else have further?
I
Go
have
ahead,
a
Sandy.
comment on the second, be it further resolved. Just a suggestion based on what Mayor Rich was saying, to take out it says as these groups strive to identify, instead just say as these groups identify additional high priority roadways. That you could say the city of Sebastopol will strive to collaborate with the transportation working group, as these groups identify. Does that make sense?
Emmett, do you feel like you can summarize the changes that we just, that looks like you just made to the resolution?
Yeah, I can. Are we ready to? Yeah, I think the summary is basically for those 4 different be it resolved sections on the 3rd page. The first one would be changed to the city of Sebastopol will. Well, okay. So we're down to the middle of that section. Reduce harm for the most vulnerable users of city of Sebastopol's roadway system by giving serious consideration to the benefits of infrastructure that increases safety for people, etc. That's one change.
Emmett, real quick, is it possible for you to share the screen so we can have it shown, these changes online?
Zeno, would you be able to pull it up? I'm not on Zoom right now. Just pulling up the resolution to share.
Just in case if somebody watches this
Yeah,
meeting, they can see
thanks.
what changes we're making to the resolution. Thanks.
And then while Zeno pulls that up, the other 3 are, I think, very simple. They're just adding strive to after City of Sebastopol at the beginning of each be it resolved. City of Sebastopol strive to collaborate, strive to prioritize Vision Zero principles, and strive to prioritize, again, Vision Zero principles.
And assuming that we're still trying to vote on this today, does anybody have a suggestion for a title? Well, the title was problematic, I believe, right?
I suggest you just take out and commit to city level actions, just to take that out, because that's basically all in the body of the resolution. So I don't think it's really necessary unless you add back in a whereas about the year 2030. But
Yeah, my comment would be, unfortunately, this isn't a resolution adopting the Vision Zero action plan. So we probably can't put that in the title.
Could we say adopting Vision Zero principles?
Ooh,
Sonoma County, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
It could be Sebastopol's Vision Zero action plan. You know,
We don't have an actual plan, though.
Are we eliminating reducing traffic fatalities to 0 by the year 2030 as well?
We
since
could say
haven't covered that
principles with the
with the goal?
with the intention to, or the aspiration to. I don't know how that would be phrased.
does it say that in the resolution, that there's a goal to reduce traffic fatalities to 0 by the year
In
2030?
the title.
Yeah.
It does not, and
Yeah.
it did not in the model resolution. It's just in the title. So it could be a resolution of the City Council of the City of Sebastopol adopting Vision Zero principles with the goal of reducing traffic fatalities to 0 by the year 2030, or not by a specific year. Or we
Council
could just
members,
get rid of
any
that whole
advice?
last chunk.
I would be hesitant to put something in the title that wasn't mentioned in the resolution. So if the resolution doesn't say anything about reducing traffic fatalities to 0, I don't think we want it in the title, but maybe we could add that in the body of it. But certainly resolution adopting Vision Zero principles, I don't think anyone's going to argue with that.
Would you guys feel comfortable ending there? Okay.
I think some of this language is there because we started off with a stronger resolution that came from the Transportation Authority that actually refers to the action plan. So another approach would be to still strive lot of strife, but mention that plan more specifically. So we adopt the plan and we strive to work with this plan in the city. And if we can pull some, like Portati, some other cities, and document that that's how they have approached things, maybe the city council is open to that possibility.
All right, any further discussion? I believe we would be, anybody from the public?
Yeah, make sure you open public comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to know ultimately before we vote what the title is going to be.
Well,
So,
okay, I'm open to a resolution that to a motion that includes a title.
Okay, well, so it sounds like there's a general agreement that that we can all agree that this is a resolution of the City Council adopting Vision Zero principles. I'm unclear what the rest of it would be.
I believe the motion would be something like that the Climate Action Committee would be moving this recommendation for a resolution with the accompanying letter forward to City Council. So with the title of a resolution of the City Council of the City of Sebastopol adopting Vision Zero principles.
What she said. With the language modifications that have been discussed already.
Yes. So any seconds?
I second that.
All right. Any discussion or public comment? All right. Let's move on to a vote.
All right, Lisa Pierce
Yes.
and Ambrosia Thompson,
Yes.
Ken Ali,
Yes.
Joshua Somanite,
Yes, please.
Emmett Hopkins,
Yes.
Zeno Swetting,
Yes.
Alex Goodman,
Yes.
Mayor Rich,
Yes,
and Councilmember Maurer.
Yes.
All right, so that motion passes.
And Phil.
Oh, and Phil is here. Phil, if you would like to vote, you do need to come up to one of the podiums and cast your vote.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Phil. All right, so that motion passes with 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 ayes.
Woohoo. All right. So thank you so much, Transportation Working Group, the hard work and many, many hours that you put into this project.
Zeno
Yes.
just pointed out that we have a accompanying letter that would need to. maybe
That was
be,
included in the in the motion.
Okay.
Yeah, we're moving on because we have another letter, which is our next agenda item, which is the letter to the city regarding Sebastopol Main Street Planning and Redesign Project, which was discussed at last meeting with instructions to Lisa with some help from myself to actually write the letter and bring it back to committee. So does anyone need an introduction to that topic or a brief rundown of the letter?
I think it would be helpful to have an overview of this letter. You can reiterate the main points.
Yeah, so Kenna and I wrote this together. Is that the right time, 4:30? So we have more business before we adjourn, right? So I just don't want to spend a lot of time. It's all
We have 34 minutes.
okay.
We're good.
Well, it's actually quite a natural segue from what we were just discussing with safety. This is opening up a can of worms, really, with this requirement that backing up a bit. So there's the Main Street Planning and Redesign Project that John mentioned that there's going to be 2 people interviewed for tomorrow. And one of those people is going to be starting to look at options for how we can improve Main Street and for bikers and pedestrians. And so we used to have a two-way street in Sebastopol until 1984. And at that time, the citizens voted to change it to a one-way on Main Street and to do the system that we have today. In 1987, it was voted on again, and it won very handily to keep the one-way system, with 76% in favor and 24% returning. That was in 1987. The big thing here is that accidents really went dramatically down once we adopted our present system. And there's a lot of statistics on that. If I did a lot of research about this a couple of years ago, looking at old newspaper reports primarily. So there was a 37% reduction in accidents with pedestrians and bicyclists after the system. And I think a lot of that has to do with just people don't have to look both ways. There's just, it's simpler to have cars going in one direction. And the gridlock dramatically improved. So the ship has kind of already sailed, in that what's the word I'm searching for?
The RFP.
The RFP, thank you, has already been approved and has gone out to the consultants. What this letter is requesting is that the whoever is doing this work be aware that Sebastopol as a city is not necessarily wanting the two-way street to be the primary focus of this study. It's a very complicated issue. I believe the RFP is for around $200,000. Studying the two-way street option could easily chomp up that money. There's a number of other options that would be much lower cost and more doable, in my opinion, such as widening sidewalks, maybe doing away with some of the parking on Main Street, slowing the speed limit, having bump outs for crossing, various things like that. So the objection that I feel is that there was only one required element that be looked at, and that was studying the two-way streets. So I'm concerned about that.
So just to clarify your
Yeah.
statement that the ship has already sailed, the RFP has gone. I think in planning report, we got that interviews are happening, which means that contract has not yet been finalized, which means there's still, in my understanding, room for adjustment to final wording of the contract. I'm looking at John to see if he has any statement to say about that, because if the ship has truly sailed, then there's no point in sending a letter.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility. It is something that Carrie and I are both aware of the two-way, kind of both sides of the story type of thing. And it is part of our interview questions, and as part of the whole process is not just looking at, the two-way thing, but also looking at other options. So it's not, the proposals aren't just specifically the two-way option. There's a variety of different options, but a two-way, scenario could be one of those options that's proposed. It's not a required, that part of it is required as far as like that's going to eat up the majority of it, and then whatever straggler is left over is the other proposals or processes.
Yeah, it's a little confusing because it is the only option that's required to be examined. So it's hard to say how much would need to be examined in order to, it's such a big one. And the other part of this letter is a request that the Sebastopol Climate Action Committee have the opportunity to meet with whoever is awarded this contract to discuss this issue.
So do we have any questions about the letter?
Yeah, I have a suggestion, I guess. A question to John Jay. And then a suggestion. So John, it sounds like you have, based on the RFP, a specific list of questions that you're asking each of the applicants.
We have a interview list of questions for the two applicants that we have, and one of them is geared towards the two-way proposal and how the consultant, whoever is selected, would deal with any opposition to that program or anybody that's in favor of that program. So how would they handle the community's input on that specific item?
Do you have other questions of the consultant that would draw out ideas or suggestions they would have beyond that question?
Yeah, so one of the other ones is somewhat related to if they have done work in other cities that have similar issues and how they've handled those outside of our own kind of scope here.
Okay, so we have an RFP that has called out this one option. You have questions that you and Carrie have lined up. Is there still time to modify those questions in any way? Have they already been shared with the applicants? Where are you in that process?
No, we haven't shared them with the app. We're still drafting any additional anyone's.
So it strikes me that the reason I ask these questions is because it strikes me that the opportunity here is to have some influence with the selection process and have questions that draw out perhaps more information about other ideas that might address that might elicit suggestions, widening the sidewalk, removing some of the parking, adding the bump outs, some of the other ideas. So as I look at this letter is saying, we want to eliminate this. Well, you can't eliminate it. It was in the RFP. But we could propose that the selection group focus in addition on the other options that might be available and emphasize them more than they might otherwise have done. I don't know if that's an opportunity, John, and what you might need from, I guess my question would be, what would you need from the Climate Action Committee in order to broaden the scope of your questions for this applicant? Is that something that the Climate Action Committee could simply send a letter to the Planning Commission? Does it need City Council approval? What's the process?
I'm not sure, since we haven't
Okay.
selected a out of the two proposals that the three proposals that we've got, two of them are being interviewed tomorrow afternoon. So we haven't struck that contract negotiation part of it, but if there are components that the Climate Action Committee wants us to consider or strongly consider, I think if it's possible to send those, I know it's like last minute, 11th hour. If you're able to send those to myself, and then I can share them with Carrie and see if we can include those in the interview questions that we conduct tomorrow, if that would work for the groups.
So I'm hearing an invitation to propose specific additional questions that could be asked of the applicants.
Yeah, and I mean, I can't guarantee that all of them would be included because we do have a limited time and, questions and presentations. The other part of the interview process is a lot of it's geared towards how they're going to handle public participation as part of this whole plan. So that's another component that we're looking at as well. So it kind of goes hand in hand.
And then the final agreement is a separate agreement that outlines the scope of the work. Can the scope portion of the final agreement be broader than simply asking that they specifically address the two-way street concept?
I believe so. I know it's
Okay.
it still needs to be within the scope of the grant from Caltrans. So that's probably more of a Carrie question to answer. But as far as the scope that's provided, there could be budget changes and stuff like that to consider if there's wavering components that we're changing. or
Yeah, it
asking
seems
to
like
change.
there's room for that because the phrasing is at least one option. So anyway, just trying to get some information out there, Lisa, that might help you formulate a plan forward.
Yeah, I think putting an additional question in the interview process, I'm not quite sure how helpful that might be in terms of, I think the main thing that I'm concerned about is that this consultant is going to somehow get the message that we have, as a city, a leaning towards a two-way street option. And that is just, if you look back at history, that is not the case at all. There's a small active group that's pushing for this. And my concern also is that they're the ones who are going to be showing up in these citizens, when they have an opportunity to sway, they're going to be there. I don't think people realize what a big deal this is and how very, very divisive this was before in our city. It really tore the town apart. And frankly, it makes me nervous anybody who lived here before 1984, who is an adult, who remembers this, they'll tell you it was bad. It was pretty ugly. So we're opening up this can of worms, and I think people do not know what they're getting into.
So, go ahead, Alex.
So I just want to clarify, when you say it was ugly, do you mean the traffic or do you mean the fight between the people with the two-way and the one-way?
I'm talking about, what side are you on? And it was very, very heated and emotional, and the town was very divided. Yeah, so, and it was voted on twice by the population. So, I'm just not sure we really want to step into it again.
In terms of the letter,
Yeah.
What our intention with the letter was to deprioritize this potential solution, not to eliminate it as a solution.
Right,
So I just want to correct that the request letter is not to eliminate it.
Thank you,
It
Kenna.
is to remove that is the only requirement. And I think that adding interview questions could be an important step because your interview gives your consultant a lot of information about what is the priority of the city. So if the questions are how you're going to handle this two-way street thing, then that is what they're understanding to be the priorities of the city. And I appreciate, John, you saying that you also have questions about how they plan to solicit public comment, which addresses Lisa's concern that only a small minority of people will be the people involved in the public comment process. So it sounds like our planning staff and the people doing the interviewing are aware of multiple factors that should be included. I guess the question for us today is, do we want to weigh in any way to, as a group, to say we want all solutions to be equally prioritized in this process? And I'm taking
Well,
comments.
I'll speak up. Yeah, I think that I look at the letter and basically what the letter is saying, hey, city and staff, take into consideration all options and don't just limit it or highlight this two-way street idea. I'm on board. In terms of who it goes to, it seems like, does it go to the city of Sebastopol? Does it get distributed to the planning commission, then a request that gets copied to the city council? I don't know, but I'm in support of the message. That's one vote here.
So we did address this to the city of Sebastopol because we weren't sure how it should be distributed. So I would leave that to planning to advise.
Yeah, I'd suggest, there's no reason to not distribute it to the city council unless I'm missing something here.
Yeah, I think going to city staff, because, the interviews are not being done by the planning commission or city council. So they are being done by city staff. So it makes sense that letter should go to city staff for that portion of it. And then, I don't see why it couldn't go to city council and even planning commission members to let them know that, the Climate Action Committee has raised these concerns about this project, and because ultimately it will eventually go to both of those boards. So
Perfect. Thank you. Do we have any public comment on the proposed letter? Or further questions or comments from the committee members?
My comment would be, I think we've heard a couple times the idea of questions being formulated and forwarded on to John Jay and Carrie for consideration in the interviews. And I personally would be in support of authorizing them to send some additional questions for consideration by John Jay and Carrie Swanstrom.
All right. So I think I'm open to a motion for the committee to send this letter as written to the city planning department for distribution to the staff, planning commission, and city council members. Do I have a
I
motion?
move.
Second?
Move. Second.
All right.
we've got a comment from Phil, I think.
Phil, sorry.
I just kind of want to, maybe we could add the questions to that motion.
Yes. So Zeno, you made the motion. Do you add the questions to the motion?
Yeah,
okay.
and a question, and you guys can
So for
distill
Lisa,
something from the letter.
and I did formulate a question to send suggested interview questions to send to planning department. And do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right.
All
Any
right.
further discussion? Anybody else? Okay.
And we didn't have any public comment, right?
We did not have any public
Okay.
comment.
I just want to make sure.
Yes, thank you. I even looked at the Zoom screen to
Okay.
make sure.
Perfect. Lisa Pierce
Yes.
and Ambrosia Thompson,
Yes.
Ken Lee,
Yes.
Joshua Somonine,
Yes.
Emmett Hopkins,
Yes.
Zeno Swite,
Yeah.
Alex Goodman,
Yes.
Mayor Rich,
Yes.
Councilmember Maurer,
Yes.
and Phil Carter, if you can come up to the podium one more time.
It's an exercise day. Yes.
Thank you. All right, that motion passes with 10 ayes.
All right. I'm feeling very happy. We have 14 minutes and 2 things passed. So we'll move on to thank you, Lisa, for bringing this forward and doing the work to get it through. Upcoming events. Agenda item D, we've already covered the events for around public education around energy, but Phil, I just want to call out, we did talk about them. You were highly praised and thanked, and gratitude to you for arranging the contractors event. So we're excited about that, and I'll hand it over to Joshua to talk about the compost events.
Yeah, just a reminder to folks, I think I mentioned these dates before, but we are confirmed for the compost giveaway events on Saturday, April 6th, which is notably before our next committee meeting. So get that on your calendar now. And May 11th, so first Saturday and then second Saturday. As per usual, the event essentially goes from 9 to 12. Organizationally, that means roughly 8:30 to 12:30. and the load will be getting dropped off on the Friday just before the event. As many of you know, Dina was sort of the original instigator of this event and has stepped away, although she will be offering to volunteer now and then. She can't make the next meeting. For myself, I'm trying to organize a little bit of a volunteer crew gradually for this event, which does not necessarily need to include a lot of you. But basically, it flows smoother if there's a couple of people at the pile kind of helping people sort out the pile logistics and occasionally helping someone back up to the pile, because people's ability to back into a parking spot is highly variable in this town, particularly amongst, certain types of gardeners. And a couple of people also helping manage the line of cars. The main thing, you're just getting them to turn their motors off and sit tight so we don't have lots and lots of idling and coming up and down the line. So I sent out an email to our compost interest list, which has been compiled gradually by Dean and Tor over the years. It's about 300 people or so, announcing the event. It's been announced in other ways. The publicity is pretty well taken care of. Haven't got a whole lot of volunteerism so far. I may prod that again. Hopefully that will change. Again, I'm not asking you all to step up and run this event. If anybody feels like they want to and can come help for a couple hours, that would be great. If you feel like spreading the word, that would be great. My hope is to make this event a little more socially sustainable by the end of the year, such that I don't have to feel like I'm kind of the make or break personality involved. So just looking for a little to spread it out a little bit. Again, the logistics are pretty well worked out at this point. It's just a matter of having a little bit of management during the process. So I could take questions if you like. I think most of you have already seen this happen, so not a big deal. Just wanted to keep you posted.
Thank you, Joshua. So very exciting. We have March 19th City Council meeting, April 4th public meeting about energy efficiency, April 6th compost event. We're just like on a roll. April 11th contractors event, and I understand there's limited space at that, but Phil, do you want us to recruit our friends in the building trades and contractors that we know to show up? Okay.
I have two more date items. Can I offer them?
Yes.
Okay. So March 27, Council Member Maurer will be at Coffee and More for the Coffee with a Council Member meeting, and that is at 10 a.m. So please join her, chat with her, ask her all the questions you can come up with, and yes, and buy coffee there too. They're great. And then additionally, the Zero Waste Symposium, annual symposium, is on May 2nd, and that's at Somo Village in Rohnert Park. So that's Zero Waste Sonoma sponsoring that, and I bet Recology will be involved. And I get to do a welcome speech. So put that on your calendar, May 2nd. Thanks, Kenna.
All right, great. So that March 27th, May 2nd, and May 11th back to our compost. And by then, who knows what we'll have in the works.
I have an announcement.
Go ahead.
I've received 17 trash picking up bags in my inbox today. It's from Our Streets, Our Creeks. This is a group from Russian River Watershed Association, and I forgot to bring them. But for example, if you go out to the beach and you see trash and you don't have anything to pick it up, these are great bags because you can pick up the trash and then you can sort it later, and then you can wash the bag and then you have it ready to go again. So if anyone would like one of these bags, I have, I guess I have 15, a dozen left. So great. Just let me know and I'll bring them next time, I guess.
Thank you. Yes, bring them next time. So moving on to chair reports, just letting you guys all know that we did present to council last Tuesday and presented the electrification survey results, which you probably saw in your Sebastopol Times and News. But again, thank you to the Energy Working Group for all their work on the electrification survey and the work that's done to kind of queue up these energy efficiency events. and understanding what our public needs in terms of education and what they want moving forward in terms of how we can apply levers of city policy to decreasing our greenhouse gas emissions in the city of Sebastopol. And I am, unless Joshua, do you have anything else? I had put volunteer engagement on the chair report for this week, but I think we will discuss that next month because it's, let's see what happens March 19th. So we know what we're talking about when we talk about volunteer engagement. And then now I'll take input from members regarding next meeting agenda. I'm hoping one of those members is Ambrosia. So I had asked her if she was willing to talk about zero waste and the resolutions about preferred purchasing that were passed prior to the pandemic and where they stand now, because enforcement obviously was not done because of pandemic related issues. So kind of bringing those back around. Anything else for next month's agenda? Or am I going to be like making things up? Okay, well, you'll be hearing from me via email. Please reach out if you have projects that you'd like input on, or just things that you want to iterate, or brand new ideas. Maybe it's time for some of those. And definitely we will, depending on what happens on March 19th, have either more planning on future projects or figure out what our response to the proposals there are. So thank you so much. Early. So I'm until the regular climate PM.
Recording stopped.